Claudia Brewer didn't even look up when I sat down. She just flipped through my 28-page promotion packet like it was a damn grocery flyer. 8 years. 8 years of skipped vacations, late nights, and cleaning up other people's screw-ups. And she skimmed it like it was nothing. "This is serviceable," she said, tapping the corner like she was trying not to smudge her nail polish. "But senior leadership's looking for someone with more charisma." Charisma. That was the word she picked, not skill, not results. Charisma. I didn't let it show on my face. I said, "The Hardy Logistics turnaround improved throughput by 16%. That quarter, we had the lowest churn in the entire division." She adjusted her stupid oversized watch and barely glanced at me. "That's good. But let's make sure the Kestrel bid gets an extra polish. I want it by lunch." That was her way of saying, "No promotion. Move along." I walked out of her office, past the corner office with the frosted glass, where I used to picture my name. I didn't stop, just kept walking down to the garage, sat in my truck with my hands on the wheel and stared at myself in the mirror. No anger, not even sadness, just done. I looked like a man done being used. 2 decisions clicked in my head before I even shifted into reverse. First, the camping trip I'd planned with my grandson Owen, canceled. Not because I had more work to do, because I wanted to be right here when their precious machines started coughing without me oiling every damn gear. Second, no more nightly runbooks. I'd written every single one of those by hand, color-coded, step-by-step, rollback ready, idiot-proof. I was the reason jobs closed. I was the reason things didn't break, and I'd made it too smooth, too quiet. They thought it all just happened. Well, I was done making it invisible. I drove back upstairs, knocked out the bare minimum polish on Kestrel, turned in a shell that barely hit the checklist, and walked out at 5:05 on the dot. On the drive home, I switched my work phone to Do Not Disturb and told myself, out loud, enough. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I wasn't quitting yet, but I'd stopped covering for everyone else. Let's see how charismatic they feel when the scaffolding disappears. When I joined Corvus Operations 8 years ago, the systems lead had just stormed out after screaming at finance. No notice, no cleanup. He took half the passwords with him, and no one even knew which ones. Day 1, I walked into a queue full of tickets older than my truck. Vendor contracts were half expired, half missing, and the client calendar looked like it had been managed by a toddler with a crayon. Nobody was steering the wheel, and the engine was on fire. But I don't panic. Never have. I grew up in a 1-bathroom house with 3 younger siblings and a dad who worked nights. You either fixed stuff before it broke, or you ate cold cereal for dinner. I learned early to keep score by what worked, not by what people said was working. So that's what I did, quietly. First 2 months, I stayed late every night, sometimes till 10:20. I mapped every workflow by hand, on actual paper, just so I could see where the gaps were. Then I rewrote the intake process, built standard checklists with named owners, and set flags so issues triggered before clients called to scream about them. People think the hard part is solving problems. It's not. It's making sure the same damn problem doesn't come back. I turned chaos into something you could actually run a business on. But I didn't make a big show about it. That's not my style. I even made a wiki, plain English, no $10 words. Just, if this breaks, click here first. Because folks won't read a manual that sounds like it came from legal. But they will follow steps if they feel like the person who wrote it actually knows how their job works. Claudia liked that I didn't make noise. She'd send me bullet points, barely enough for a napkin plan, and I'd spin it into a full proposal. Then she'd walk it upstairs, smile pretty, and pitch it like it was hers. The room would nod. I'd be rock steady. She'd say that in my review every year like it was a compliment. Then she'd hand me a raise that wouldn't even cover the new gas prices. Still, I told myself it would even out, that someone would notice, that they had to notice. They didn't. At home, I'd walk in past 8, pretend my back didn't feel like rebar, microwave whatever was left, half-watch TV, and tell myself I was building something. My ex used to joke I married my job. I laughed back then, should have taken it more serious, because she wasn't wrong. I missed more than a couple of Mason's ball games. Said it was just for the quarter, just till this next push. Then that push turned into the next one and the next one. I blinked and he was shaving. Every morning, I rolled in at 6:40 like clockwork. I'd stack briefing packets for Claudia's 8:30, go down the line fixing fires before anyone even knew they were lit. By noon, I'd already patched the day and sanded down the edges. People said the team ran smooth. They thought it was automatic, but it wasn't. It was me. I made it so quiet that nobody even saw the damn work, and that's on me. I trained them to ignore it. I trained them to ignore me, and that's when the job stopped feeling like a job. It felt like a trick I'd pulled on myself. Next morning, I didn't walk in early. I came through the door at exactly 8:30. No briefings, no prep notes. Claudia's chair sat empty like always, but this time there was no packet waiting for her. I logged in, sorted my inbox, and opened only the emails with my name on them. Everything else, those vague FYIs and can you take a look garbage, I forwarded right back to the sender or their actual lead. No commentary, just please route per scope. Procurement pinged me around 9:10, said a supplier invoice looked off, and asked if I could dig. I replied with the time-stamped clause in the contract and copied their manager. Let them deal with it. Sales rolled in next. Hey Warren, can you work your magic on this RFP? I typed back, please follow intake. I'll review once documented. That was it. By noon, 3 people were standing near my desk like they were circling a downed power line. Warren, can you jump on the Holton sink real quick? I didn't even swivel. That's PMO scope. Yeah, but I'm minding my lane, just like leadership asked. They stood there a second longer, then scattered. I didn't smile. I wasn't playing games. I just stopped doing work that wasn't mine. At 5:07, I packed my bag. People were still typing and murmuring in the glow of their screens. I walked out. No good nights, no fake cheer. Just the click of the exit door and my feet on pavement. I drove straight to my daughter Nora's place. Owen ran out in socks and a hoodie, waving a crooked hunk of wood. You said we'd finish it. We did. I sat in her garage with a cup of coffee while Owen handed me mismatched nails and told me a story about a class turtle. We built the ugliest birdhouse I'd ever seen, and I didn't fix a single crooked edge. He looked up at me while I hammered the last nail. Are you off work early for good? I looked at him and said, working on it. Later, at home, I finally turned my work phone face up. 63 missed calls, 9 voicemails from numbers I recognized, a couple from numbers I didn't. I scrolled through the messages, puzzled, then annoyed, then straight up panicked. The big one was from Claudia. Hollander Foods wants revisions to the pilot wiring, late-stage changes. They're asking for you directly. Of course they were. I was the only one who knew how we'd structured it end to end. I wrote the install steps myself. Nobody else even knew we'd bypass their internal handler to route data faster. I put the phone down, took a long drink of water, sat on the couch with my feet up and the TV off. First good sleep I'd had in months. Didn't dream about dashboards. Didn't wake up worrying about pre-meeting prep or cleaning up someone else's miss. I just slept. That night, I felt the shift start. Not loud, not dramatic, just real, and real felt good. I walked in at 8:31 the next morning. People were speed walking. That's how you know the water's already in the boat. A guy from finance had his tie flipped over his shoulder and was mumbling to himself. Ait was in a cluster near the elevators, whispering like something had exploded, but they hadn't found the fire yet. Claudia's office door was open, her voice carried out like a siren. We have it under control, which meant we absolutely didn't. I didn't even make it to my desk. One of the admins flagged me down. Claudia needs you in glass room 2, now. When I stepped in, Claudia was already sitting stiff-backed, arms crossed. Across from her was Dan Klein, our regional VP. He stood up and shook my hand like I was a parachute. Warren, we need your help on Hollander, today. I sat down slow. Claudia didn't say anything at first, just gave me that look like I'd left my bike in the driveway again. What will it take for you to handle this? She finally asked. We can revisit the promotion. I rested my hands flat on the table, calm, steady. I've already been approached by Rivet Systems, senior ops lead, bigger scope. That wasn't a bluff. I'd had coffee with their recruiter 2 weeks ago at a diner off the 84. Smart guy, understood infrastructure. Dan blinked. Are you leaving? I reached into my bag and slid a printed letter across the table. 10 business days. I'll meet my obligations, document everything, and keep things stable. But I'm done covering tracks. Silence hit the room like a vacuum. Dan broke it first. "We can match whatever Rivet's offering." I shook my head. "It's not about a number on a check. It's about being treated like I'm more than a utility closet with legs." Claudia's mouth tightened. "Hollander asked for you by name." I nodded. "That's not a compliment, that's the proof. You need results. I get results." Dan tapped his pen against his notebook. "If we pull you back in for Hollander, does that buy us time to talk options?" I didn't rush. "I'll stabilize Hollander this afternoon as part of my notice. That's the deal." Claudia shifted in her chair like she wanted to argue, but Dan leaned forward. "After Hollander's briefed, can you give me 15 minutes? Just you and me." I looked at him. He didn't sound desperate. He sounded serious. "All right," I said. 15. They both exhaled like they had been holding their breath. I stood, collected my folder, and walked out without a word. Out in the hallway, people tried not to make eye contact, like I was radioactive. Nobody knew if I was in trouble or about to take the place down. I sat at my desk and opened the Hollander folder. Half the files were wrong. The changes they wanted weren't plug and play. They needed rewiring, comms timing, and sign-off from 3 different departments. I grabbed a yellow notepad and started sketching out a split deployment strategy. If I did it right, we could give them a phased rollout that bought us time without looking like we were stalling. I wasn't doing this to save Claudia. I was doing it because I don't leave jobs half-finished. But I wasn't doing it for free. Not anymore. Dan's office had more glass than furniture. I stepped in after Hollander's triage session and took the seat across from him. He closed the door soft, like we weren't already sitting in a fishbowl. He didn't waste time. "I've been tracking your impact, Warren. I owe you an apology. I should have stepped in sooner." I didn't smile. "Chain of command's a thing," I said. "I did the job I was given." He nodded like he understood, but he was still buying time. "Tell me what it would take to keep you." I didn't pause. "Recognition tied to actual authority, budget control to fix what's broken without begging, and the ability to build cross-training so we're not one person deep on every key system." He leaned back, crossed one ankle over his knee. "What if I said there's a role that doesn't technically exist yet, Director of Systems Architecture? You'd report to me, not to Claudia." I raised an eyebrow. "Double your salary," he added. 2 remote days a week. Full design authority over how work flows across ops, IT, billing, and compliance. It was a serious offer, not just talk. I sat quiet a moment, then said, "Rivet's draw is clean history. No baggage, fresh slate." He didn't blink. "That slate's clean because they don't know you yet. We've got clients who trust you, people here who already follow your lead. Institutional knowledge has value, especially when it's tied to delivery." He had a point. Starting over sounded clean, but also thin. No foundation, just me and a pile of expectations. I let that sit a second, then said, "I'll think it over through the weekend." He nodded. "Fair. In the meantime, can you keep Hollander steady?" "I'll stabilize them today," I said. "But if I stay, we're doing it right. No more invisible backbone. I don't patch holes and keep quiet anymore." "Understood." I left his office and went straight back to the Hollander mess. Their COO got on the call with 2 senior leads, rattling off demands like they thought we were Amazon on speed. "We need all changes live by Thursday, or we'll have to escalate." I didn't flinch. "If you want it to work, here's how it lands. 3 phases, with risk gates in between. You'll get a proof step in 72 hours that won't take down production. That's the deal." They didn't love it, but I spoke calm, clear, and backed it with actual logic. No fluff. Just the map. They settled. Because when you stop promising magic and start giving truth, the right people adjust. I spent the next 2 hours reworking the scope, flagging key blockers, and rerouting the last-minute nonsense they'd tried to sneak in through side channels. I looped in only the people who owned the parts. Nobody else. No more cleanup crew. By 5:20, I had the whole thing in motion with a new timeline and ownership grid. It wasn't a miracle, it was a checklist and telling the damn truth. And I wasn't handing it off in the dark this time. The next day, Claudia asked me to grab lunch. First time she'd ever invited me anywhere that didn't involve a laptop and a whiteboard. We sat in a booth 2 blocks from the office. One of those places with fake wood walls and bottomless iced tea. She ordered a salad and barely touched it, just kept moving the lettuce around with her fork. After a minute of small talk that went nowhere, she finally said, "I leaned on you too hard. It wasn't personal. You just never dropped the ball." I let it hang a second. Then I asked, "Why did you call me serviceable?" She looked up, surprised, like she didn't expect me to hit that head on. "Because you're behind the scenes," she said. "Leadership wants shine. They want someone who stands out." I kept my voice steady. "I'm done being the guy who builds the stage while someone else gives the speech." She didn't argue, just sighed and set her fork down. "If you stay, I'll make it right." I shook my head. "You can't make right what you don't own." We didn't talk much after that. I paid the check and walked back to the office alone. Saturday, I took Owen to a minor league game out in Salem. He wore a foam finger and tried to catch foul balls with a glove that was way too big. Between innings, I told my brother Clay the whole thing. He's a foreman at a pipe-fitting shop. Straight talk, no filter. He listened all the way through, then said, "You want payback or a better life?" I looked at him. "Both, if I'm honest." He nodded once. "Then make it so they can't do this to the next guy either." That stuck with me. Sunday morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow pad and wrote out what mattered: build a team, fix the pipeline, make the knowledge public, keep my evenings. If I stayed, I wasn't staying for a paycheck. I was staying to change the wiring so nobody else had to bleed quietly for a title they'd never get. Monday, I walked in at 6:45, went straight to Dan's office, and laid it out. "I'll accept," I said, "if I get full hiring authority for 3 new roles I define: tech process, systems audit, and field readiness." Dan didn't say a word, just nodded once. "And Claudia stays in her chair," I added, "but with one change, her department's operations run through mine. Project execution, pipeline governance, all of it. Not a beheading, a rewire." Dan set his pen down. "You're sure you want her to stay?" "I want the structure to change. If people think I pushed her out, the lesson won't land." He cracked a grin and leaned back. "You're a lot more political than you look." I shrugged. "I've been paying attention." He stuck out his hand. I shook it. I wasn't there to tear it down. I was there to rebuild it with the lights on. The company email went out at 10:06 that morning. "Please welcome Warren Price, our new Director of Systems Architecture." I didn't even finish reading it before my inbox blew up. Notes from people who hadn't said 2 words to me in years. "Congrats, well deserved. Knew it was only a matter of time." That kind of thing. A few admins sent real messages, the kind that mentioned late nights, rerouted emergencies, and "thanks for keeping us running." They knew. They'd always known. First thing I did was pull 3 resumes I'd flagged a month earlier. I walked down to HR myself. Priya from IT support had been reading server logs better than our Tier 2 guys for years. No one saw her because she didn't talk loud. Luis from billing had his own spreadsheet tracking vendor gaps that procurement had missed twice. And Erin from facilities, she was the only one who seemed to understand how physical workflow actually moved, who needed to be where, when, and what broke if they weren't. I put them on the contract to hire in 48 hours and gave them actual space to work. Then I got out of their way. 2 months in, we cut overtime by 37%. Rework dropped 42%. The hero ticket culture died the day we launched the new ops dashboard. Real names, real dates, real owners. I wrote every run book in plain English. 7th grade reading level. If you can't explain something simple, you don't actually know it. People stopped guessing who owned what. They started knowing. Claudia and I kept it clean, no drama. I stripped the ops pieces from her decks and fed her polished summaries before meetings. She didn't have to chase execution anymore, and her client calls got sharper. One day, in an exec review, she said, "Warren's team saved us twice this quarter." No hesitation. I watched the room go quiet for half a second while that sunk in. After Hollander's 3-phase plan landed, they expanded their contract by 2 full lines. Their COO started copying me and Dan on every major decision note. No middle filters. And something new started happening. People asked me to present, not, "Can you prep this?" or "Can you join as backup?" No, they wanted me at the front of the room. It was a different feeling. Was any of it revenge? Sure, a little. But I didn't slam doors or make a scene. I didn't need to. I built a training track that made hoarding impossible. Every SOP visible, every system documented in the same format. And I rigged the dashboards to show who actually did the work, not who had the nicest PowerPoint. The right people started getting credit. That's how I wanted it to sting. Not in public takedowns. In results they couldn't ignore. Because once you've been in the dark long enough, flipping the light switch is the revenge. 6 months later, I still left at 5:05 most days. No scramble, no, just one more thing. I'd walk out to real air, not recycled hallway buzz, and climb into my truck without my phone lighting up like a beehive. That was the win. No applause. Just quiet, clean systems that didn't hinge on me anymore. At home, Owen once asked, "Are you the boss of the bosses now?" I said, "I'm the guy who makes sure people can do their jobs without getting crushed." He nodded like it made perfect sense and went back to building a helicopter out of Legos with no rotors. Last week, Claudia stopped by my desk. No invite, no meeting. Just a strategy binder in her hands. She held it out and said, "Your team should present this." No edge in her voice. No performative smile. That told me everything. We were past the part where she pretended my work was background noise. Tonight, after dinner, I got a text from Dan. "Board approved your bump to VP next month. Unanimous." Underneath that, Claudia gave the strongest recommendation. I set the phone down and just sat there for a minute, not smiling, not celebrating, just still. It didn't feel like a victory lap. It felt like something was finally quiet in my head. People love the idea of proving others wrong, posting the title change, dropping the "told you so." But that wasn't it for me. What stuck more was knowing the wiring was different now. If someone steady shows up tomorrow, keeps the wheels turning, holds the weight, he won't have to light himself on fire to get seen. We've got cross-training now, clear ownership lines, built-in relief valves. Nobody has to be a ghost hero anymore. If you've ever been called reliable, like it was a box to keep you in, I get it. I lived in that box too long, and the day I stopped hiding the work and stopped doing everyone else's job for them, that's when it shifted. Not because I yelled, because I made the work visible, and I shared it. That was my payback, and it stuck.